From CP3 becoming the second in all-time assists to Jimmy Butler's agent having it out with Shams on Twitter for the second time, these are your top moments from last week in the NBA. Starting off this list with Chris Paul overtaking Jason Kidd to become the second in all-time assists. Although he may not be able to reach John Stockton at 1, his record should definitely be safe. Trae Young is the most likely active player to reach that benchmark, but even Trae would have to stay on this pace for the next 12 seasons, which is pretty unlikely, so this is pretty firmly CP3 planting his name in the history books, and doing it in this fashion is pretty fitting for a man with the nickname Point God. Ja Morant recently stated that he's done dunking, making this decision to prioritize his health. And really, given the rise of all the injuries, it's finally good to see a player take his health so seriously. Apparently Jalen Brunson says he wants Dick, and Joel Embiid is down once again with another injury as the 76ers struggles continue to stack up. After making a pretty serious win-now move to bring in Paul George, I'm sure the front office as well as the fans didn't envision their season going this way. Paul George has already hyperextended his knee twice, Tyrese Maxey was even down for a little bit with a hamstring issue, and now Joel Embiid has suffered a sinus fracture to add on top of his already continuing knee issues. But even when out on the court, Embiid looks like a shell of the player that he was last year, now averaging 28-4, a far cry from the 35-11-6 that he was putting up last season. The man responsible for keeping Spike Lee's therapist in business, Trae Young, is still wreaking havoc over the city of New York, walking into the Garden, dropping 22-11 while getting the win and shooting dice on the logo for good measure. In other news, a sudden deal popped up between the Warriors and the Nets that saw Dennis Schroeder and a second-round pick getting sent to Golden State in exchange for DeAnthony Melton and 3 second-round picks. This move will serve to add another man in the Warriors' endless rotation and continue to send Brooklyn in the direction of, well, I don't really know where. Now for the final story. There's been a lot of talk surrounding Jimmy Butler and what the Heat are going to do with him. Like everyone else, Shams weighed in suggesting that the Phoenix Suns were another team in the mix for Butler. However, obviously Shams' words carry a little more weight than the other talking heads on ESPN, so this got the attention of Jimmy's agent, who publicly called out Shams on Twitter saying that his claims were, quote, fabricated. And this isn't the first time that Bernard Lee, Jimmy's agent, has had issues with Shams. Back in April, Jimmy seemed to have suffered an injury against the Sixers and was ultimately caught on video limping while leaving the arena. Speculation was already growing around the injury when Shams had tweeted out that there was fear amongst the Heat that Jimmy suffered an injury to his MCL, later adding that the expectation is that he would be out for multiple weeks, to which Bernard felt the need to reply to, and he would call into a Sirius XM radio show saying that Shams was, quote, creating reality. Well, about 5 hours later, it was announced that Jimmy Butler would miss multiple weeks with an MCL sprain. To be fair to Jimmy and his agent, Shams did post his tweet before Jimmy had even seen the doctor, but Shams had also never definitively said that Jimmy did suffer an injury to his MCL. All he said is that it was feared. So take what you will from that and apply it to their ongoing dispute today. Now to look at the change in the standings from last week. In the West, the Grizzlies moved up to the 2nd seed and are continuing to show that same dominance that they had over the conference just a couple seasons ago. Also, it seems like the Nuggets are finally starting to wake up, with Jokic doing things that we've never seen before in the sport of basketball. And in the East, the Bucks are starting to turn their season around, winning all of their games this week and going 8-2 over the last 10. And that's it for this week. Hope to get you back here next week for the next recap.